Hello everyone, and welcome to Sunup. I'm Lyndall Stout. Now's the time to be planting and putting out enriched strips for fall wheat. And joining us now is Brian Arnall, our precision nutrient management specialist, to give us a little bit of advice. And Brian, let's start with the what and the why of enriched strips in the first place.
All right, so I'll start with the why. You know, we've been working on enriched strips at OSU since the late 90s, early 2000s, doing research in all crops, but primarily wheat. So we have a long history in winter wheat and understand how it works. Year in and year out, the enriched strip is making Oklahoma wheat producers $10 per acre. That's either in savings of nitrogen, where they are reducing the rate and making just as good yields, or in increased yields where they're putting on a little bit more nitrogen in the environments that need it and they make more grain. So year in, year out, we could almost always bank on a $10 per acre savings with enriched strips. Now in the enriched strips, how we do it is many mechanisms to put out. An enriched strip is nothing more than a higher rate of nitrogen in your field. So if the entire field is getting a pre-plant of 30 or 40 pounds of nitrogen, or if it's only starter with the drill, we need to go over the top of that field in a strip or two with another 30 to 50 pounds of nitrogen for winter wheat. If this were dual purpose wheat a little bit earlier in the season, I'd be recommending a little bit more for the enriched strip. We can put the enriched strips out in a variety of ways. From large self-propelled sprayers, producers will run just the center section of the boom, putting out a liquid spray with that center section going across the field. I'd like to see at least 300 feet long, but there's many producers that will do the full field length just to see that entire field. There are some that are using anhydrous applicators pre-plant, and they just do a double pass to get 2 passes on, so they double up a rate. Many producers are buying urea and renting a spinner spreader and just pulling that across their fields. That's a very effective way to cover a lot of acres pretty quickly. I know several producers that can do all their acres in a single afternoon with that. More commonly, we're getting crop consultants and CCAs that are putting out enriched strips in applicators like this, either ATV or UTV with a 20-25 gallon liquid tank and a 10-foot sprayer on the back. That allows you to cover a significant amount of ground in a very short period of time.
Is it best to do your enriched strip before or after you plant?
It's best to put it out.
Okay.
I'm happy with any timing that you can put it out. My common recommendation is pre-plant and up to 30 days after planting is a good window for winter wheat.
And then what about weather factors, rain, and other environmental things that are beyond our control?
That's where the enriched strip really comes into play. The enriched strip helps us measure the soil and plant at the same time. It's that piece of litmus paper that we put out there. So if we have excessive rains and the system loses nitrogen because of leaching or denitrification, the enriched strip will show that because it has more than the rest of the field, and it'll start showing up. If we have perfect conditions for release of nitrogen from the system, it won't show up because it says, you know what, there's enough nitrogen out here, I don't need any more. And the moment you start seeing those enriched strips in the field is the moment we need to start planting for that top dress fertilizer, whether it's November or March.
And speaking of fertilizer, what kind of decisions should we be making and things should we be doing now that it's planting time?
Now that it's planting time, you know, most of the producers out there, if they haven't gotten out their pre-plant, they're probably already made those decisions and bought that fertilizer. So the real primary decision right now is that starter fertilizer. The majority of the southern Great Plains will put fertilizer with seed through the drill, the air seed, or however you're applying it. And so there's just a few things that we always need to keep in mind. One, that little seed and that little seedling is extremely sensitive to both salts and ammonia. And the salts are important because our fertilizers, such as 1846O, 1152, the nitrogen in those fertilizers are a salt type nitrogen. And so is the potassium and sulfur in many of our fertilizers. So there's a limit to the amount of salts we can put in row with seed. With wheat, that runs between 20 and 30 pounds of salt, depending on soil moisture and soil texture. A moist, fine soil can handle a significant amount more salt, closer to that 30-pound range, than a dry sand. You have to be much more cautious on that. But it's about that 20-pound range, which would get you about 100 pounds of 1846O is a safe rate. Now, many producers do something that we don't recommend at OSU, but it's a very common practice. That's putting urea with the seed. But what happens with that urea is the first process of urea going into a plant available form is it dissolves and turns into ammonia. And from ammonia, then it goes to ammonium. So that little seedling is in the presence of ammonia when it has urea prill next to it. It'd be no different than putting on anhydrous ammonia the same day that you plant. That's usually something we try to caution against because there's a high risk of damage.
A lot of information to sort through. For people who would like to learn more, they can always go as close as their county extension office or find more on the SunUp website. Brian, thank you. Let's go ahead and get rolling with this enriched strip.